We now come to test number 6, which will cover chapter number 6, personal divisions. And as you go through the chapter, you'll notice some of the things that we'll bring out, as well as some of the things that we had from the lecture and the charts. You'll need to be familiar on page 162 with A.W. Tozer's quote. There's a quote that I give from him on page 162. And you need to know about the word saved, how that it's used in different ways throughout the Bible. Just the fact that the word saved is used different ways. We give you some material on the parable of the prodigal son on page number 164. And you need to know the division of that parable, the lost silver, the lost son, and the lost sheep, and what those represent. You need to know the good Bible verse that we give for biblical separation. There's a Bible verse, several verses there we give regarding biblical separation. You don't have to have it memorized, but you need to know it for the quiz. You need to know the verses that teach that hell is in the center of the earth. You need to be familiar with those verses which teach hell is in the center of the earth. You need to know the difference between righteous Old Testament saints and righteous, or I should say saved New Testament believers. Like we have on the chart, where do the righteous Jews go in the Old Testament? Be familiar with the chart. That's just a basic understanding there that will be on the quiz. You need to be able to distinguish between standing and state. I gave you some additional things regarding standing and state, but the things that are on this chart, you need to be able to match up the things that go with standing and then the things that go with state. You need to know about the circumcision of Christ, the importance of the circumcision of Christ. And you need to know about lordship salvation. I gave you some brief material on lordship salvation on page 175. You need to just be familiar with that, basically what it teaches. And then you need to be familiar with what group teaches that you don't have to confess your sins. They teach that there's no need for you to confess your sins as a believer. Okay? You need to know which dispensational group is typically involved in social issues. Which dispensational group is typically involved, or they teach that believers should be involved in social issues. You need to understand the difference between the two views regarding government, God and country, or God anti-country. You need to know what those two views believe and hold to. I'll give you plenty of material on pages 178 and 179. And then you need to know the main verse that teaches that we as believers should submit to governmental powers. The main text in the New Testament that teaches that we as believers should submit to governmental powers. And that'll conclude our test number 6 for personal divisions.